everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey Books. I'm Ellie. Today is my birthday. I'm 25 today, and I thought that it would be a good excuse to talk about some of my favourite books. I apologise if you can hear Percy eating in the background. He'll only eat when I'm in the room, and he's decided now is a good time. So I picked out 6 here. These are in kind of no order, but kind of a little bit of an order. I have a lot more books that I really love that I would consider favourites, but I wanted to make sure that this video wasn't like half an hour long. So I kind of picked out the 6 that when I looked at them I was like, well, I can't not mention that one. So let's get into it. Most of these are ones that I read a few years ago. Some of them are a little bit more recent. And we'll just jump in with this one. This is The Belgian by Sylvia Plath. I don't really talk about Plath a whole lot anymore. But a couple of years ago when I was sort of starting to read her for the first time, I talked about her a lot. So yeah. I read this book for the first time in 2014, and I just instantly fell in love with it. It was my first experience with Sylvia Plath in general. I just completely fell in love with her writing, and from there I went into learning more about her and reading her poetry, and she's someone that an author that I really, really enjoy. This is also one of the very, very few books that I own more than one copy of. I'm not a person who really sees the point in owning 5 copies of the same book, but this one I do own 2 of. So there's that. Next up we have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is one I studied at uni in my 2nd year, so early 2015. And I had always kind of put off reading it because I wasn't really interested in it, and I think that that was partly because of kind of the I guess cliches around it, like the green monster with the screws in his head and the whole "it's alive" thing, and that really kind of turned me off it. But it's obviously nothing like that if you've ever read this, and I was just completely drawn in by the story and the writing, and then I also kind of developed an obsession with Mary Shelley, which is still alive and well to this day, even though it's been 5 years, 5.5. I don't really know. I'm terrible with working out times and whatnot. Anyway, loved it. Love Mary Shelley. You're gonna notice that in the next couple of weeks I'm gonna be rereading most of these, with a few exceptions, because it's spoopy season. Perfect time for Frankenstein. Also, it's my birthday month, so I wanted to reread things that are my favourites and that make me happy, and etc. Bringing on to things that make me very happy that I'm planning to reread. Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. You've probably heard me talk about this because this is my favourite series. This is an ARC version of Nevermore. There's also Wonder Smith, and Hollowpox just came out, and it is on its way to me, and I'm very, very excited. So excited. This is a middle grade series. It follows a young girl named Morrigan Crow and this really interesting world and all these amazing side characters, and I just really, really love it. This is Australian, and I believe that there's 5 or 6 books supposed to be in this series. Like I mentioned, the 3rd one has just come out, so very, very excited. And then this is where we get into the kind of order. I would consider these 3 my top 3 books of everything I've ever read. But I don't necessarily have like an order of like, this is number 1, this is number 2. It kind of changes, and you know, depending on my mood and what else I've been reading and etc. So of course we have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I am currently hosting a read along for this. I'll have a video about that on Monday as a kind of almost midway point discussion. But I read this in 2013 and instantly fell in love with it. I'm going to talk about more about like why I read this in the first place and that sort of thing in that video. So yes, if you're interested in learning more about that, yes, I'm here. Yeah, that video will be up on Monday. Okay, this one was a little bit more of a difficult choice because this one kind of alternates out with another book out of that top 3. But it is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This one kind of swaps between this being my favourite Christie and Murder on the Orient Express being my favourite. So that one kind of switches out depending on my mood. This was my first ever Christie back in, I think, like 2010 or 11. And I was instantly obsessed with it. My grandma went out and bought a whole bunch for me. I have an Agatha Christie TBR that I made a couple of weeks ago that I'll link below if you're interested in hearing more about that. But yes, I kind of grew up reading Nancy Drew, and my mum and I used to watch a lot of crime shows together, like The Closer, Bones, Risoldi Isles, Castle, shows like that. So I kind of was already interested in this field, but I didn't really enjoy crime fiction. And I still don't really to this day, but Christie sold me over because twists are so good, and to this day, I think I've read 20 of hers or something like that, and I've never guessed correctly. I also don't really like to guess, so that might have something to do with it, but still, she's amazing. And yes, and finally, you will have heard me talk about this one a lot last year because it was my favourite book of the year. If you watched a good number of my videos, especially my wrap-ups, you're probably gonna guess that it is The Great Believers by Rebecca Mckay. So this was the first book I read in 2019, and it was the best one I read all year. Not that the others weren't great, but this just like completely tore me apart and then just put me back together a little bit, only to like tear me apart again, and I loved it. This was one of those books that after I finished it, I just sat there and sobbed for a good hour or so. So this follows a group of characters in Chicago in 1985 at sort of the height of the AIDS crisis. And then it also follows one of those other characters in 2015 in Paris during the terror attacks. And as you can imagine, it just tears you apart, and it's kind of brilliant in the way that it does it. I loved this so much that I bought myself tickets to go up to Sydney for the Sydney Writers Festival just because Rebecca Mckay was there. I met a lot of other really awesome authors and listened to lots of talks and bought lots of books, but I went to Sydney for Rebecca Mckay, and I have no regrets about that. So yeah, those are my kind of like top favorites. I think Favourites are always difficult because as you grow older, you change your opinions on things. I have first. And you know, if it's been a couple of years since you read a book, maybe you don't really remember how much you did love it, and things like that. So I feel like these always change, but these have kind of been solid for the last year. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys on Monday with that Rebecca video. I'll see you all then. Bye!